Hello everyone, my name is Ashwin and welcome to part 3 of Protopie Crash Course. In this video, we will learn how to do rapid prototyping in Protopie. The source files are available along with the description, and you can also check out designerx.io for a classroom experience of this course along with exercise files and other courses. This is the first video in concepts, so it covers some of the basics. So when you're ready, let's dive right in. So here I have opened a new Protopie file, and I also have the sketch file ready. So the sketch file has simple 4 artboards, and each artboard has a backdrop with just a button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into Protopie and hit Command I on first scene, and I'm going to import screen 1, and it's not perfect because the sizes of the screens are different. So let's quickly make it to 360 cross 760. So 360, 760, and then we import it at 2x. Yeah, now it looks perfect. And I'm going to hit Command 1 and select a new scene. And in this scene, import the screen 2. Likewise, I'm going to hit Command 1, scene 3, import scene 3. Command 1, scene 4, import scene 4. Okay, so now that we have all the 4 screens imported, what we are going to do is to try an interaction over here. So let's quickly open our interaction panel. So in this panel, you have a button called Add Trigger. So this is the basics of Protopie, where you have a trigger and you have an action corresponding to it. So triggers can be anything from touch, from condition, from mouse, from input. So if you tap, then it performs a corresponding action. So these are the building blocks for Protopie. So let's try the most basic of the trigger, which is a tap trigger. And when you tap on a tap trigger, you can select which layer that you want to tap. Here, this layer, the button, I've called it a button. So I'm just going to select button over here. And to define the action that this button needs to do, you can tap on plus, and there are multiple options over here. So you can either move something, change the scale of something, rotate something. There are lots of options. We're going to cover as we prototype some of them. Let's tap on the simplest of it, jump. Also, if you want to have a shortcut for this, what you can do is select the layer that you want to add an interaction to, and then hit on T. That quickly selects the layer and adds the interaction, and you can just tap on plus and select the corresponding action that you want to perform. So I'm going to delete this for now. So the next thing is quickly select jump and define which scene you want to jump to. So I'm going to say 2, and I'm going to make a transition of slide in. So I use Command tilde to toggle back, and when I tap on this, it slides in, and as simple as that, you have a slide interaction. You hit on Command R to refresh, tap on this again. Likewise, I'm going to do it in each screen. Go to the next screen, tap on T, and tap on action, and jump to scene 3, and slide in animation again. And likewise, select the button, tap on T, select the action, jump to scene 4, and slide animation again. So you can change the properties, the animation properties over here. So let's try something else now. So what we're going to do is add another trigger, and let's tap on touchdown. So touchdown trigger is when you touch a particular element. So you might have to touch it for it to respond. We already have tap as a trigger already defined. So touch will happen as you touch. Tap is triggered when you finish your touch. So you can just remember that way. So I'm going to select button for the touch event, and in the plus, I'm going to add an action for, say, scale. So in scale, I'm going to select which layer I want to scale. I want to scale the button on touch, and I want it to scale to, say, 150 cross 150. So how did I come up with this number? When I tap on button, I can see it's 72 cross 72. And now I'm trying to scale it to 150 cross 150. But when I go and into the preview with Command tilde and try and click You see nothing happens. So we can toggle this off for now. You have this option to disable this particular interaction at this point of time. And to understand why it didn't happen, I'm just going to touch on this just a bit. But for you to quickly scale this, and you have to select factor, and you can scale it to say 150%. So 100% is its current state, 150% is the new state. So I'm going to toggle back and hit on Command tilde and come back here, and when I tap on this, as you see here, it scales. So as soon as I touch, it scales to 150%, and it doesn't happen every single time because 150% is the state that you want to scale it to, which is its current state already after you touched. So I'm going to refresh, Command R, and go back here, and let's understand why it didn't scale with size. So you have this group, like I explained in the last video, the group size can be different from the content size. So I can keep increasing the size of the group, but the contents inside may not scale along with this. So if you really want to change the entire contents, you need to scale it by a factor. Or if you do want to scale everything inside it, there is another concept that you have to understand, which are basically constraints. So now let's go into a button and see this oval. And this oval is basically constrained to the left and the top edge, and this is the origin of the oval. So whenever you try and scale this, it scales, whenever you try and scale the group, it scales towards the constraints that you have defined. So what you can do is simply change the constraint to say left edge, right edge, and then scale it again, and then, so you can just make this, this is the constraint of the group. So I'm going to go to the constraint of the oval, and then I'm going to change this to right and top, and then when I scale the group now, this is the expected reaction. So the reason the circle does not expand in size is because you have defined a fixed width and a fixed height. So let's toggle that off, and then when we try to scale now, it again scales to the right constraint. Let's toggle this off as well. I'm going to hit on Command Z, and now go select the group. Okay, let's make sure this is for the oval. So I'm going to remove these, remove the constraints as well. And now when I try and scale the button, you see here that it scales accordingly with the parent group. So now if I go back into this scale function and then make sure it's selected in size, and if I want to scale to, let's say, 150 cross 150, and now I go back into preview and try and touch down, it scales accordingly. But the arrow mark scales weirdly because let's go into path and then see the constraints of the path, which is the same constraint that we tried and fixed earlier. So we need to remove this as well and remove the fixed width and height as well. And now the scaling happens as expected. I'm going to hit on Command R for refresh. Then when I do this, it works as expected. So a simple way for you to remember is just prefer factor when you're trying to scale, and scale it to a particular percentage from the current one. So you can also add another action saying touch down, and let's say I'm going to go and make this say 120%, and I'm going to go here, select the same button, and I'm going to hit on scale, and then I'm going to scale to the factor back to 100%. So if you select factor, you don't have to worry about the constraints inside the group, so that should make it easier for you. So you can just go back into the preview, Command tilde, and then, okay, so now you scale to 120% and you scale back to 100% on touch down. Oh, this has to be touch up. So I'm going to select touch up, and I'm going to move this here, delete this. So now when I touch down, it scales. When I remove the touch, it scales back. If you want it to be a little more prominent, just make it say 200, and when I touch down, it scales, and when I release, it comes back. So let's try and cascade one more action on top of this. So when I touch up, I want it to jump into the next screen, not on tap. So what I'm going to do is just take this interaction and drop it in touch up. And if you, let's delete this, and if you try this out, you can see that the touch down animation, or sorry, the scale animation is not clearly visible. And that's because the point at which the jump happens is at the 0th second, and the scale animation itself lasts for 0.2 seconds. So if you want to smoothly jump after the scale animation completes, all you need to do is just drag this and place it at 0.2, or if you want it accurately, just type 0.2. And I'm going to go back to preview window, touch down, and it scales down and then jumps. So that's how you use simple triggers and actions. For you to know what each of these do, you have this small question mark next to it. So if you don't know what fling is, for example, you can tap on this question mark, and then it jumps into the documentation where you can see what fling actually is. So a response is triggered when a layer is swiped across a direction set in the layer's properties at a speed faster than the system assigned default speed. So when you swipe something like this, so that's called a fling. So when you fling, you can correspond it to a particular action. So you can pretty much accomplish most of Protopie's functionality with just knowing these. So you can also go ahead and see the different touch triggers that are available. You have drag, you have rotate, you have double tap, and so these are different options that you can just go ahead and figure out yourself. But in the next video, what we will do is we will try different practical interactions that you might have to do with your prototyping with some of these triggers and actions. So we will learn them as we try and figure out how to build our prototypes. So I'll see you in the next video.